Hi, Dave Dickinson with Bankers Compliance Consulting. I want to talk about compliance, but from the role of the board. Now, I came up with this house of compliance years ago that shows the different pillars of the compliance management system. Culture being the foundation of any good compliance program. Risk assessments, policies, procedures, training, reporting, complaint management, all those types of things we know are pillars of a good compliance management system. But it also starts with board and senior management oversight. Now, what's that really mean? What is the board's responsibilities? Well, according to the regulatory examination manuals, everything is the responsibility of the board, of course. But the board is at that 10,000-foot view, and they're writing policies. They're not telling management exactly how to do things. They're saying basically this is what needs to happen and why it needs to happen. And then senior management should carry out the details of that, explaining who, when, where, and how those things are going to happen. So the board might be ultimately responsible for that, but we know that the board doesn't really write the policies. Probably the compliance officer writes the policies, takes it up to the board, they look at it, they bless it. I want to be very careful that the board always approves policies but does not approve procedures. They review procedures to make sure that those procedures are in alignment with their policies. That's really where the board's responsibility needs to stop, because senior management is hired to carry out those duties that the policy says. So we let the board oversee and management carry out things. Next, what's your board's risk appetite? What's their risk tolerance? This is something that I find that most compliance officers and maybe even some senior management cannot articulate well. Are we satisfied with a 2 rating, or are we striving for a 1? Now, most compliance officers say, oh, I want to get a 1. Most boards that I talk to say a 2 is good enough. Now, remember who you work for. The board decides they want a 2, you really need to be trying to get a 2. Now, I'm going to give you an analogy. I have a son that's in college, and I don't tell him, hey, son, go study for a C. A C's good enough. He should be studying for an A. But if your board is saying, we don't care to get a 1 rating in compliance, a 2 is good enough, and you're spending resources, time, money, energy trying to get a 1, maybe you're doing too much towards that. And you might be working, in a sense, wasting money according to the board. So making sure you understand their risk appetite. What is acceptable to them? What things won't they tolerate? And as we just talked about, the rating that you're after. Now again, most compliance officers see the exam report as their report card, and so they're going to strive to get a 1 rating and 0 risk. We're trying to eliminate things. Keep in mind, we're here to mitigate risk, not eliminate risk. You need to have a crystal clear understanding of what your board is after, what they want from you as compliance officers, and maybe we need to help facilitate that conversation. That's what we're going to do in a 1-hour webinar on February 11th about compliance for the board of directors. I'm going to encourage you to attend this with senior management and the board, and if you can't get them there, at least know that our webinars are recorded and that you'll be able to hear from me, and then you can play back segments of this directly for them. We're going to talk about your compliance management systems, risk tolerances and risk appetite, making sure that everybody is on the same page. What's the expectations of the board for the compliance officer? Then we're going to talk about supporting the compliance officer. And last, whose job is it really to comply? And I'm going to tell you, it's not the compliance officers. The compliance officer is a guide. They're the conduit of information, and they're guiding everybody in the bank because it's their job, everybody's job, to comply. We need to make sure that senior management and board hold people responsible for that. Otherwise, the compliance officer becomes the bad guy, if you will, the bad gal that is trying to kick everybody into complying. And that's just a recipe for disaster. So join me, Dave Dickinson, for 1 hour, February 11th. We're going to get into the weeds about the role of the board, and I hope we can help you all gain great unity in this area. See you then.